Hello. If you're not familiar, my name is Emma Devlin, and I am a high school English and Spanish teacher in like the most rural town in the world. And I recently discovered Book Talk, but I'm 31, and I feel like Book Talk is like for people who are younger than me. So here I am on BookTube, and I am going to share with you the books that I read this month. Um, so this is my first one, but if you have any suggestions on books that you really liked or books that you really hated and would like to make fun of, let me know and I will read them. I really, really like horror. Um, so that's like my personal preference, but I read just about anything. So, today, or I guess last month, um, I read 5 books, and I am counting audiobooks because I listen on the way to school and home from school. So, I get through about one a month. Um, for my audiobooks this year, I'm doing 12 books recommended by my Facebook friends. So, but that's the first one I'm going to talk, or the last one I'm going to talk about. So the first one I finished is one that I started a long time ago and kind of came back to because I needed something to fill some time. It is The Women's Atlas by Joni Seager, and it's um not it's a lot of like graphics, infographics, and it examines just like women's issues around the globe. And they have other ones. They have um, like the an American Atlas that talks about like issues in America. This is not just America. This is around the world. And it talks about like discrimination, health issues, uh, reproductive rights, um, technology usage, talks about different health problems that people face in different parts of the world, um, different problems that exist in the workplace. I should have remembered what I ranked these books. I think I gave this one a 5. Um, and I don't easily give 5s, but this month was a pretty good month. So I gave it a 5 mostly because it covered areas that I had not even like considered thinking about. Um, like uh like accessibility of indoor plumbing, like something that I take for granted every day. Um, it was insane to see amount of the percentage of people, women in particular, who don't have access to that because we know as women, uh, public or indoor private bathroom situations are like pretty cool. So it was just a lot of things that I hadn't thought about. Talks a lot about like living up to like beauty standards, how beauty standards have changed over the course of time, how beauty standards are different all over the world. I liked it. It was easy to read because it's a bunch of infographics and it's separated into chapters that it's super easy. If you didn't want to like sit down and read a book about infographics, you could, if you were like interested about health issues, it's separated so it would be easy to like flip around and get to where you wanted to go. The second one is a book of poetry, which I feel like is kind of cheating because it's this long. But look at all the pages this book, I love it. Okay? If this girl ever writes more poetry, I'm buying it as soon as I find it. Her name is Daniell Koepke. I don't know if that's how you say it. Koepke. And she is the creator or the developer of the internal acceptance movement, which is like you can look it up online. It's like a movement to about just accepting yourself. So she writes a lot about like anxiety, feeling like you're not sure if you're like living your purpose and you're not. I mean, just a lot of like self doubt stuff, which is something that I struggle with regularly. So this got a for sure 5 stars, and also it's like definitely ranked pretty high in my poetry books. And I read quite a few poetry books. I used to hate poetry when I was in high school and college. Hated it because when you're an English major, they just make you read all like the classics. But the modern stuff that people like, the Instagram poets and stuff, are right up my alley. So I definitely highly recommend this one. Really, really good. The next one I finished, God bless, is The Green Mile. So when I was 19, I challenged myself to read every Stephen King book in chronological order. So the first couple of years of teaching, I fell out a bit because the first couple of years of teaching is hell on earth. So I fell off a bit there at the beginning. Um, Recently, I've been able to get through like 5 or 6 a year. And in general, I love Stephen King. I don't read the Dark Tower series. I read the first one, Gunslinger, I think it was. Some people love them, and I am not one of those people. I'm not a huge fantasy reader, so I just really struggled with the first one, and I figured, you know what, I'm doing this for me, so I just cut that series out. But I was dreading The Green Mile, dreading it, because when it first came out, I was like maybe like 10, 13, I don't know. We watched it on vacation, and I'm a very sensitive being, so there was part of the movie that my mother would not let me watch. And over time, I found out what happened during that part of the movie, and I was very glad that I didn't watch it because I cried throughout the whole movie as is, so I knew that it would not go well. This freaking book, okay? First of all, I like the way it's written. It's split up into 6. When he originally published this, he did it serially. So like how they used to do back in the day with like really small like editions of the book, and it would go in serial order. Um, so it was originally 6 like small serials. Um, and nowadays he publishes it as the entire novel. So I really like the way it's broken up because it leaves you on a cliffhanger, because the people who were originally getting it were waiting before they could read the next part of it. Um, and then it kind of goes back and reviews. So you can take emotional breaks if you need to, which you might need to. It's about, if you're not familiar with The Green Mile, a lot of people didn't know it was a book. Um, Stephen King writes things that are not horror. One time he was in the grocery store and a lady saw him and said, "You should really write something wholesome, something good, something like The Shawshank Redemption." And he was like, I did write that. I wrote that. There's a lot of stuff he doesn't get a whole lot of credit for it. And if it's not scary, he usually doesn't get credit. This one's not scary. It is about um, the main character is a warden on death row, and it takes place in the 1930s, so like the Depression time period. And he's a warden over just the death row inmates. So like you get to know the stories behind some of the inmates, and it is so sad. It's like previously my level of deciding if you had empathy was that one scene in The Fox and the Hound where the lady's leaving the fox behind, and if you don't cry, then you must just not cry. Now I'm pretty sure if you don't cry during The Green Mile, that's probably where it is, because it's really sad. It has really sad parts because he makes characters so well. You either love them or you hate them. And he's the guy that came up with Pennywise, and the most despicable character that I've ever read of his is in this book. And this was in 96. So I've made it through 20 some years of his writing, and the most evil character is in this book about literal humans. And he's not an inmate on death row. So, really recommend this one if you are prepared to be a little bit sad. And I hate sad things. Every time I read a Stephen King, I rewatch the movie or watch the movie for the first time. I will not rewatch this movie. No. But it was good. And when I finished it, I like couldn't put it down because I just loved it. 5 stars. 5 stars, Green Mile. One of my for sure favorite Stephen King books. Very unexpected. Did not expect to love it so much. The fourth book I read is called The Bucket Diet. I'm pretty sure I'm not going to get monetized anyway, so it is what it is. This book, I think I gave it 4 or 5 stars. It's so I'm really weird about the way I read. When I go to bed, I read a self-help book. Just the way I do things. I classified it as a self-help book because it's about getting rid of like diet culture. So, it's for people who have struggled with weight their whole life, and kind of getting back to like letting your body be what your body is and appreciating it for what it does. It's broken up into several sections, so it talks about like the mental part of diet culture, like how we hurt our brains. It talks about the emotional part, so how our relationship with food can get so bad that we starve ourselves or people get eating disorders, things like that. And it talks about the physical part, how your body reacts when you are trying to diet. And it's not shaming you out of eating well or moving your body, which I appreciate because a lot of like since body positivity movement, which is cool, there's been like a backlash to where they're like, eat whatever you want, be sedentary for your whole life, do whatever you want. It's like a two-sided thing. This is like a little bit in the middle. It wants you to be comfortable to eat whatever you want. It wants you to not associate weight with health problems, which I know is controversial, but this chick has done her research. And a lot of the things that we think are tied to weight just happen to be also common in people who are overweight. Like, it is not a defining characteristic. I would like to read more to make sure that she's unbiased. And I have read a few other books that seem to tell me that she's not unbiased. But this one was really good because I struggle with body positivity. Like, I love everybody else looks awesome, if you ask me. But then I hate me. But that's also goes back to this whole internal struggle thing. If you have ever struggled with like eating, whether it be an eating disorder, I've never experienced that, but I have definitely tried restricted eating, calorie counting, exercising as punishment. I've tried all those things, unhealthy as crap, and this kind of helps you realize that you're only alive once. You want to try to be as healthy as you possibly can be, and part of that is having a healthy relationship with food and not trying to control it so much as just live your life. So my only hang up with this one is that the author, very cool, Caroline Dooner, she has never been a fat person. And I know that's has nothing to do with anything, but it was hard for me as a fat person to feel like she could relate to me because she admits herself. It's not like she's trying to say she's fat, but she's not, and she never has been. She admits that herself, that she has always been an average body size. But it was definitely harder for me to like believe that she understood the struggle, if that makes sense. Not saying that she doesn't, because I know like everybody got on Taylor Swift when that music video came out with the scale. I think anybody can struggle with weight no matter what their size is. I know that that is true. But it was harder for me because she spoke so fluently about it, but she had never lived it, if that makes sense. The last book that I read, well, listened to, was on my phone. I have an Audible subscription, and it was the first book, and it was recommended by my friend Tracy from high school. and it was called The Witch of Willow Hall by Hester Fox. And um, it was kind of like historical fiction. I gave it 3 stars, not because I didn't like it. I'm a harsh critic, but because there were parts that felt really extraneous, like unnecessary, and parts that at the end didn't get tied up. So it's about this girl, um, Lydia, who finds out that she is an ancestor. She is a, what's the opposite of ancestor? She has ancestors who were witches in the Salem witch trial. Um, fictional, but fictional witches, not actual people who were killed during the Salem witch trial. But she finds out that she also has, to some extent, powers, witch powers, and it's also, so it's kind of like a witchy coming of age story with like also Pride and Prejudice, like with the, she's one of 3 sisters and she falls in love, and she, there's issue where she might not be able to be with the person she loves, and like a romance, I guess. I don't read romance as a rule, but this wasn't strictly romance. It was historical fiction, um, obviously a little bit of fantasy because of the witchcraft. Um, it had a lot of things going on. It wasn't confusing. It was almost a little YA reminiscent, um, just the way it was written. Um, the heroine was, you know, pretty and skinny and perfect, and the men love her and things like that. But it had the whole witchcraft thing going on, and it had the whole romance thing going on, and it had family drama going on, and it was, there was just a lot of, we were pulled in a lot of different directions, and at the end I just didn't feel like it tied up the loose ends as much as I would want it to. It didn't leave anything like hanging in pieces where you were angry at it, but I felt like there were some things that could have been wrapped up a little more smoothly, if that makes sense. So, those are my 5 books. I will leave them in the description below if you're interested in checking them out, if anyone even made it this far, 17 minutes in. But if you did, please feel free to leave me some recommendations on books that you found intriguing one way or another, whether it was really good or really cringy or really scary or just not really sad. I hate really sad. And next month I will let you know what my, I'm aiming for 5 books a month so that I can do 60 by the time the end of the year rolls around, but I know that's kind of a high goal to reach for. Um, so it could be more, it could be less. But I will let you know what my next selections were, and I hope everyone has had a lovely January and is ready to go into the shortest month of the year and the most romantic. Thanks.